Hey, everybody. It's a big week for cybersecurity at HYCU, creating some really innovative technology around cybersecurity and cyber resilience. And excited to get a briefing and update from Andy. Andy, how are you?
Hi, Evan. I'm doing well. Very, very happy to be here. Very excited about the news.
As am I, and you've been at this game for some time. Maybe introduce yourself, a little bit about your journey and background. And for those who may not be familiar, who is HYCU?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Evan, my name is Andy Fernandez. For everybody in the audience, I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at HYCU. We're the number one SaaS data protection company in the world. Evan, I could actually say that I was born in data protection. My entire career, my entire focus, for better or for worse, is focused on data protection. And I head up product marketing here at HYCU. Very, very excited about this. And for those who don't know who haiku is, or maybe are wondering how do you pronounce that? Is it a Japanese poem? That actually stands for Hybrid Cloud Uptime. We are the number one SaaS data protection platform in the world. We focus on making sure that we can protect your entire data estate from one place.
Yeah, it's an amazing proposition. And your approach to cyber resilience is really intriguing. Maybe talk about that to start. When did resilience, particularly cyber resilience, become such a hot topic, not just among us techies, but in the boardroom, in the C-suite, and across the media journalist world? What were some of the drivers behind that?
Yeah, absolutely, Evan. Let's go back 5 years ago. I think that's when we saw the beginning of the massive uptake, the massive investment. That's when you started to see security budgets become a much larger share of IT as well, or within the organization. And it started because of simply attacks, crippling attacks on critical infrastructure on premises. And what happened was organizations saw extreme disruption, whether that is for-profit cyber attackers accessing critical workloads in the world, or cyber criminal syndicates that are state backed that are actually going and impacting healthcare hospitals, even governments as well. That's when it started to become an issue because it really disrupted experiences. But what we saw, Evan, was not only a tremendous response in the data protection and security folks, where you start to see now that ransoms are actually starting to be paid less for certain types of workloads, right? Because of virtual machines, physical file shares, everyone has a strong data protection strategy. And those workloads are very protected, they're mutable, they can be recoverable. Where we start to see the new uptick, Evan, is addressing all of the data protection and cyber resilience gaps in cloud and SaaS. That's where, 10 years ago, if you owned the data center, all of your critical data was in that data center. Today, you're trusting dozens, if not of hundreds, of cloud and SaaS providers to manage your data. What's happening now? Well, attackers are realizing where these folks on-prem, they have tremendous infrastructure, they have great backups, they have the ability to recover rapidly. But guess what? They have no backups, they have no recovery options, and these are sitting ducks within SaaS and cloud. And so now you're seeing all of these supply chain attacks, you're seeing exploits, you're seeing even insider threats really make a dent in these organizations. So the conversation has shifted from we need to stop ransomware attacks to we need to be able to stop cyber threats across our entire estate, not just a fraction of the virtual environment.
Fantastic. And enter Resilience Shield, our shield for short, your big news of the day, of the quarter, maybe. What's the big idea? What are some of the key features and drivers behind our shield?
Absolutely. So, Evan, as we stated about 2.5 years ago, we really set out to go and protect the most workloads in the world, right? We protect over 86 workloads today because we said,
Well,
you know, it's important to have introduced cyber resilience, but it's worthless if you cannot protect or even provide recovery of some of the most critical applications, right? Think, for example, Evan, things like GitHub or Box or Jira. It's critical data. It touches production. It has customer information and employee information. It must be protected. So 2.5 years ago, we set out to be able to protect all of it. Now, today, we wanted to make sure that we enhance and build even more cyber resilience into this. And I'll give you a couple of examples. And what our shield is think of it as a fabric of cyber resilience that we built into the platform. One key area is being able to make sure that organizations can rapidly detect ransomware on-prem. Those attacks are still happening. AI is helping cyber criminals become much better at their job. You need to be able to detect very quickly. But another key area that we introduced is something called RLOC, which is immutable backups, block level immutable backups for SaaS and cloud workloads that nobody else is able to provide. And the last bit that I'm going to talk about, because our Shield has so many different capabilities as part of it, is offline recovery. So, Evan, imagine if your service goes down, any SaaS service that you think about. If it goes down because of a severe outage or there's a supply chain incident, there's a chance that you could lose your data. Imagine if you had an offline readable access of some of the most your critical knowledge in your organization. So what our Shield is and what we've introduced that we're so excited about is a framework, a solution, a fabric to protect against any threat on any workload, not just continue to enhance and focus in a myopic view on virtual workloads, but all threats that are available. So there's so many capabilities, but at the end of the day, it's do we make it very difficult for hackers to make sure that they don't find and attack our backup infrastructure? Do we make sure that everything is protected, including SaaS? Do we make sure that everything is recoverable the way it must be recovered? Can the data be accessed? And is the data going to be in customer control? That's all it is at the end of the day.
Well, that's really compelling. And so this technology is being used effectively in the field. Do you have any anecdotes or stories, case studies where our Shield is really making a difference that you can share? I know it's tough to
Yeah,
talk about some of these sensitive topics.
no, absolutely. We have customers all over the world who have been using us to protect their Nutanix workloads, their on-prem workloads, even cloud infrastructure. But so many of these customers have come to us and they've said, look, we want to make sure that we protect all of these different SaaS services that are very critical. We're worried about an insider threat to something like GitHub. So we have financial services organizations all over that are trusting us with our lock to have immutable backups for critical development workloads like GitHub and even CI/CD. I'll give you another example publicly, Evan, the Boston Red Sox. So this is
Wow.
an organization that is using so many more SaaS services than you think just to make the game happen. Everything from ticketing to the speed of the pitch. And there's so many critical services that they need to be able to protect and recover. And they're using and trusting HYCU to do so. So what we're essentially telling our customers here is, look, protecting your virtual and cloud infrastructure is table stakes. But where so many of the new low hanging threats are cloud and SaaS. That's where we're seeing so much customer adoption as well, Evan.
Fantastic. And talk about the notion with our Shield of instant recovery. How do you really facilitate that and mitigate risk associated with, that data behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. And recovery is critical to identifying different segments because how you recover instantly a virtual workload is so different from a Git repository. So one of the things
Mm,
that we do is making sure that you can recover the data as it's meant to be. Application centric type of recovery. When it comes to the instance side, though, Evan, we have, for example, let's grab Nutanix, right? We're the number one Nutanix data protection provider in the world. And we
mm.
leverage Nutanix snapshots to be able to provide the fastest possible recovery there. Obviously, after a validated checkpoint with the R Shield scanner that we've just provided or that introduced into our platform as well. But then you also have things like, for example, Atlassian. That's a completely different type of recovery, right? You're talking
Right.
about dozens, if not hundreds of objects that you have to recover very, very quickly. Everything that we do there is API driven. And once again, we provide the fastest possible recovery in those types of workloads. And it's all boutique and custom to the specific application. So a lot of these are capabilities that we've had over the last few months that we've started to unveil today, Evan. We've really been working on making sure that our customers have adopted it and shown us the value. Everything from the R Shield scanner that we've had customers test to things like offline recovery as well that we've just released.
Wow. Congratulations. And, there's so many organizations playing catch up and to implement a sort of modern approach like our Shield. How long does it take and what's the effort involved? What are the steps organizations need to consider in moving to this new world?
You know, Evan, when you think about it, the first step that organizations have to take is actually what is your tech stack actually look like? What does your data estate
Mm,
look like? You would be surprised when you have conversations with CIOs and you ask them, how many workloads are you using? They're going to rattle off Microsoft 365, Salesforce. But the longer you stay in conversation and the more they bring in staff, that list becomes larger and larger and larger. So the risk at the beginning is not even knowing that you have a problem. Did you know that in your organization, your marketing team is leveraging DocuSign and there's incredible amounts of private contractual data
wow.
there? Are those being backed up, right? It's those conversations where organizations have to admit first, we have a problem. There's an insane amount of applications that are unprotected. We have to go and triage, and then we have to go and start making sure that we can protect. The good news is, Evan, as you know, HYCU, we're software only, we're storage
Mm,
agnostic. So think of us as an express highway that's fully encrypted from the source to the customer storage. So once you make that decision, it's very fast to start protecting your workloads. Customers can start protecting their estate same day. And it's because of our architecture, because of the simplicity, but I would rather represent it as intelligent simplicity. We've done a lot of work to make sure that it's a simple experience for the customer.
wonderful. So there's so many industries that are playing catch up. We hear news stories every day about healthcare breaches and challenges, just heart wrenching. Obviously state, local education, and on and on. Where do you see adoption being at the moment? Where does it need to be across industries?
So where it needs to be is everywhere, especially when you
Right.
think public sector, especially when you think municipalities and folks who maybe don't
Mm,
have the largest budgets, but are still holding
mm,
so much critical information that will run a city. That's a huge area. But Evan, one of the areas where we've seen very strong adoption though is financial services. And the reason for
mm,
that is the EU released the Digital Operational Resilience Act that essentially dictated that any ICT or SaaS or cloud service that your organization is using that impacts customers or touches productions has to have a backup that's policy driven. So it's not just a script on a hard drive. It has to be stored off site and has to be continuously tested. This has
mm.
released a frenzy within the EU and also any US company that's doing business in the EU. And they have to go and become DORA compliant. And you're seeing copycat legislation all over the world. You're seeing a version of it in South Africa. You're going to see versions of it in the US. So financial services, forefront, just because of the legislation that's driving it. Healthcare simply because organizations can't afford to lose this data. So that's another critical area. And the gap there is folks aren't thinking about all of these healthcare services, our health records, document management, surveying, they used to be on-prem. Now they're individual SaaS services. And it's a bit of a blind spot that nobody's had a conversation about. Where's that data? Am I protecting it? If that service goes down, do I have access to it? So we see healthcare also as a major driver, but I can confidently say financial services has been a massive adopter.
Absolutely. So look, your enthusiasm is really infectious. It's almost like you worked in this industry your entire adult life. So
Exactly.
congratulations on this. And everyone I talk with at HYCU has such a mission-driven mentality. It must be quite rewarding to be part of that team.
It is, Evan. I think, when you work in tech, sometimes it can be easy to think through, well, what impact are we actually having, right? Am I working on a widget to help somebody sell another widget to then document this widget? Or am I delivering a
Mm,
product or a service that actually can potentially save data and save lives, right? There's always, for example, the children's hospitals that are getting attacked.
mm.
These things are happening. There is actual evil and it's happening in a digital setting. The fact that we can go help and recover this data is very critical. And I think that's allows us to kind of have that approach of saying we're actually making a difference.
And indeed you are. Congratulations on all the great work. Onwards and upwards. Thanks, Andy.